I deeply acknowledge this rare privilege of introducing our distinguished guest of honor and speaker. My entire career in the public service has been spent under his leadership. I've seen him work as chief executive, as a statesman, and as commander-in-chief of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, especially at a most crucial period in our history. I shall not speak of the qualities of his leadership or his achievements as the leader of the Filipino people. These qualities of leadership and these achievements are best left to the judgment of history. Permit me, however, to say that beyond all his achievements, beyond all that he has done to keep our nation peaceful, secure, and progressive, he has brought honor and dignity not only to his office, but to the entire Republic by his deep and abiding respect for the Constitution, the highest law of the land. For indeed, under his leadership, the Philippine Constitution has found the fullest expression as an instrument for reform, for public order, and for social justice. It was the Constitution which ordained the proclamation of martial law and the birth of a new order. And it is the same Constitution which now provides the framework for the transition to normalcy and the promise of a greater Philippine society. It is for this that it gives me the highest honor and the great pleasure as President of the Philippine Constitution Association to present to all of you our fellow constitutionalist and friend, His Excellency President Ferdinand Marcos.
Thank you very much, Minister Juan Ponce Enrile of Defense. I greet the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and Mrs. Fernando, the Speaker of the Batasang Pambansan, and Mrs. Macalintal, Assemblyman Carmencita, and of course, the lady who has jurisdiction of us here, since he's Governor of Metropolitan Manila and Minister of Human Settlements. I greet the foreign guests, special members of the Deputy Court, the members of the Judiciary, the Supreme Court all the way down to the municipal courts, and our legislators, my fellow administrators in government, my history summons us once to an encounter with destiny. It is the privileged fate of generation, yours and mine, that it has been called twice by that same history to serve. Life and honor in the hour of crisis and the hour of need. The first time, of course, was when we had the war of our own making in order to defend our country. The second time was when we had to impose on ourselves 8 years and 4 days, less than 4 months, of a martial discipline in order to save the Republic. Today we are privileged once again. We have another encounter with destiny. The magnitude of this moment necessarily brings us back to the very first crisis in the life of our people, when nearly a century ago our forebears in Pugadlawin, Tirad Pass, in Kawit, in Malolos, offered their lives, their happiness, and most valuable of all, their sacred honor to a quest that we pursue to this very day, the great quest for a new society. This was and has ever been the Filipino dream, a dream of a new order of national existence, a dream thwarted for close to a century. We have had 100 years of solitude, a century of alienation from one another, 100 years of humiliation and distorted values. And so it was that 8 years ago, the consequences fell upon us. A social order in which the privileged of the few were enjoyed over the degradation of the many. In some, the social indifference of the elites spawned the rebellion, which we then call the rebellion of the poor, in which legitimate grievances were exploited by conspiracy and subversion to bring about the destruction of the Republic of the Philippines. The death of a nation through violent revolution. Indeed, the perils which threatened the Republic then were brought about principally by the failure of the elites, the oligarchy, incarnated in a political society which deluded rather than educated the masses of our people in the ways of an authentic democracy. We had a political and social culture that was dominantly populist and opportunistic. History has shown to us how societies are saved and rejected in various ways. In the few years, the kings curbed the excesses of the ruling barons, or vice versa. At other times, checked the abuses of kings. Still in other periods, governments protected the common good against the rapaciousness of the ruling class. An example from recent memory was President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's proclamation of the New Deal. Essentially, this was what we have since called the revolution from the center, which bought time for our people so that they could muster the strength to stem the tide of turmoil and rediscover their solidarity. The old Constitution, colonial it was, approved by an alien power as it was, nevertheless provided the legal and peaceful means for this quiet revolution. We were to have cherished and protected it, and we now have a new charter whose ratification we celebrate today, which we must cherish all the more, for it is our very own, for it brings together a new system, a new policy, and the resurgent spirit of a new people. There are those who would denigrate this Constitution. I am afraid they live in the past of their lost glories, a past when the freedom and the happiness of a few were held up as the freedom and the happiness of the many. It was a night or of a remembered greatness, shall we say, I am moved to recall how 16 years ago I appealed for the support of our people with an invitation to greatness. 7 years later, the gravest peril was upon us, menacing our lives and freedom of generations yet to come. Anarchy, assassination, arson, pillage, destruction, immobilization of the economy, destruction of public buildings, and the proclamation that the new government would take over the Republic of the Philippines. I saw that crisis as the test of Filipino greatness, and I was elated that our people shared my vision. That crisis, my friends and my countrymen, is far from over, but we have proven ourselves in the past 8 years to be equal to any such crisis. To be sure, it had been necessary, imperative, to resort to the discipline of martial law, to summon the military to its sworn duty to defend and protect the Republic. But as events showed, contrary to our detractors, Cassandric warnings, our armed forces performed honorably and well. In accordance with the noble traditions of their warrior forebears, they upheld the Republic, but for the civil authority. They shall ever remain as a model, as an example that shall be set up if in days to come after this the Republic should ever stumble once again. Our people will ask, how did the military of that decade of the 70s, how did these noble warriors and soldiers conduct themselves in those crucial days? And they shall point to you as the heroes whose lives they must emulate.